Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm gonna talk about the latest episode of Pandora. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. It's kind of neat that we do kind of have like, oh, everyone's together having fun type of situation, and then immediately it goes, oh, shit just hit the fan because Raylan gets arrested for the Tereshkova's destruction, and obviously they're making it so that like there's only 3 impartial judges, no jury. It's not going to be like to the public, which Raylan immediately is like, oh, this is so you can hide what your true agenda is, Osborn. You're manipulating this whole situation, which just begged the question. At first I was like, is this Osborn manipulation? Which I'm like, when we look at everything he's done over the course of the series, it's like, is it that much of a stretch to see that he would do something like that? And the sad situation is, it seems like when it is all said and done, the only people who seem to be on his side is, Jax. Obviously, that gets a little complicated when it turns out Raylan actually has a wife. Her name is Mata. And it's like, okay, so it's like, oh, immediately my brain is like, oh, that's not going to be good. Jax is going to let this kind of influence her decision. Because even Xander was kind of like, yeah, if he lied about that, who was to say that he didn't lie about what else could he potentially be lying about? Which, in Raylan's mind, because the moment she shows up, I'm like, it has to be a political thing. Because the fact of the matter is, even his father saying like, oh, I'm here for support, I'm not here to kind of like help you necessarily. So I'm like, oh, it's interesting because it turns out Mata ends up being his defense lawyer in this situation. But I think it stems from the fact is like, he even said it because like she was like, it's like as they humans say, let's get down to business. Which he immediately kind of was like, yeah, that's what it always is between us, isn't it? But then he's still kind of like, I am grateful that you are here. You should know that. So it's like, okay, in that moment, I'm like, it is an arranged marriage. I kind of had a feeling just the way, because like I feel like Raylan being who he is, there's no way he would just kind of like, it's still kind of shitty because Jackson even brought it up too. It's like, why didn't you tell me about that? And he's like, I should have. But the fact of the matter is, it's an arranged marriage. It's just, it's a politically motivated marriage. But at the same time, it's like, regardless of what the circumstances is, that's still your wife and you're trying to have a relationship with me, which that's also a little complicated because Atria has to point out the fact that she talks to Pilar about the fact that it's like, yeah, I like Thomas and I like Raylan, so I don't know what they do about the whole situation. And I love that Atria brings up a point I brought up before. It's like Thomas wants her to be who he wants her to be, and that's kind of like the whole point I brought up. I'm like, that's kind of shitty on his part to do that. Which she still cares for Thomas regardless, but part of her wonder is that the reason why she can't get Raylan off her mind is because of that angle of Thomas trying to push her to be who he wants her to be, but Raylan never, because Thomas doesn't realize how pushy, like from the very beginning, he's kind of changed her to be like, oh, this is what a relationship is. I want you to be, it's a little, your notions of everything. It seems like you want her to just be someone. She can't just be herself, which for her, it's like Raylan's just all about, hey, being yourself because, he can also, because all of them can understand because obviously, like, Thomas has his thing with obviously like first being an empath, but now his abilities have grown. So, I'm sure he feels even more like an outsider, but all 3 of them kind of have that outsider element to them. I think that's why their group of friends is what it is, just because of all of that. But at the same time, it's still kind of like, I don't know, man, that's still kind of, so it's very complicated, which Pilar was like, well, Thomas literally left to get as far away from you. And, Raylan is up for treason, so if I were you, I'd kind of find different guys to basically be into. So that was just kind of an interesting circumstance. But nevertheless, so I figured this all had to have something to do with the black box, because that lawyer, the prosecutor dude, shows up and he's like, oh, I'm just kind of here to check the boxes to make sure everything, because like for him it's like, I never lose a case, so I want to make sure everything's above board, because I guess he knows Osborn by reputation too, so it's like, yeah, let me see if you're up to some shady stuff. But it's like, oh, these black boxes, flight data can't be like messed with, so it's kind of like an open and shut case in many different regards. But even with Jax's testimony, it's not enough because the other 3 people involved, Thomas, which, man, Thomas picked the worst time to kind of be dealing with the shit he's dealing with right now. Billy D and Tierney are nowhere around to cooperate that, which, why would Billy D admit that, and why would Tierney? So it's kind of her word alone, no one else to corroborate it. So makes you wonder, does Osborn know about it? He probably most likely knew about it, and so that's why he didn't. That's why he probably wasn't even worried about it, because that's why it almost looked like during the whole thing it didn't seem like he was shocked. Obviously, like Schral, the teacher, because he's one of the judges, it seems like he was kind of shocked to hear this. But obviously, like, Jax got immunity with this whole situation, so she was able to kind of say all that. But in the end, it didn't help because there was no one else to kind of corroborate that. So it just, like I said, it's just her word alone. She gets in contact with Cordelia, which Cordelia and Regan got fucking destroyed by their dad, because the fact of the matter is, he was like, the fact is, basically calling them failures, because like for him, it's like for so long, it's like the freed name is supposed to represent like someone not giving up. Kind of when it comes to power, we put ourselves in powerful positions and we don't give up and we keep pushing. We're never faulting, essentially. But he's like, all you've done is fault. All you've done is fail me. Like, Regan's thirst for power gets in her way, so she's losing track of things. Cordelia's no better, because for her thirst for love is getting in the way. It's like, I asked you for one thing, one simple girl, that being Jax, and you failed me at every turn. The fact of the matter is, with Pandora at their disposal, which even that means even Cordelia knows everything there is to know about Jax, which says a lot, that even though she does know all that she does, she still cares heavily for Jax. The question then becomes like, has she always known? Was it more recent that her dad and sister brought her into the fold and told her everything there was? It probably before everything went down. A couple episodes ago, she was probably informed about everything about Jax, but it probably doesn't erase that history. So regardless, there's that whole situation, and it's like, okay, their dad being like, oh, you take after your mothers were leeches. It's like, Jesus, that's super shitty of him to kind of talk like that, and he's basically just like, get out, it's like, wow, that's kind of an asshole thing. But for him, it's like, because Pandora plays such a big part, like, she's the key to gaining power. Like, with her power and the portals at her disposal, it's like, you can run the galaxy, which, Harlan's just all about gaining power. So there's that whole thing, which Cordelia is like, don't worry, sister, I know a way to get Jax. And it's like, it's not for him, it's for us. And I'm like, okay, so what are you two playing at? Like, I was curious what it was, but Cordelia has a way to, it's like, oh yeah, here's that alien. Yeah, it turns out we know that that Raylan is innocent. I should have pieced that together immediately, because I was like, why does Harlan care so much about this trial? Because I thought if anyone was behind it, I kind of figured it was Earthcom, but more so specifically Osborn. But it's like, no, it turns out it's actually Harlan who is behind all of this, because that's why he has an alien, because the one who actually set up the explosion and everything, he's actually the one that he works for Harlan, so it's like he's the one that set that all in motion. I was like, that's really interesting. So Xander and Jax go to meet with Cordelia, and it's like, okay, here's the evidence with the real flight data. Here you go. Let's go. I don't want to be here anymore with my family. I'm like, the moment she was saying that, I was like, all right, BS. But, Jax is kind of believing her. And the fact that she was willing to sacrifice herself, I'm like, man, she's putting up a good act. I figured something was up the moment, like, what was it? Xander had pointed the gun at dude. He was like, don't shoot. I was like, okay, like, well, for one, it's like probably being like, oh, show mercy, which I'm sure Xander took it as that. But at the same time, you're like, no, that's live ammo. Don't shoot me. It's probably what that really was about, potentially. So regardless, I'm like, but it's quite the performance. And then Regan's like, they know the truth now, and we have to let it all play. At first I was like, I don't get it. But now with everything kind of playing out, it's like that revealed that it was all Harlan behind the Tereshkova's destruction. So it's like, oh my God. So that's what this has all been about. It's about, and the moment Xander shows up to arrest Harlan, I'm like, they removed their father. It's like, oh, you want to talk smack about us like that, Dad? Fine, we'll remove you from the situation. To be fair, Regan wanted him removed from the situation so that she could be in power. But obviously her dad wouldn't croak. He just kept living for the past, 150 years, so there's that whole thing. But now Regan's in control, and obviously Cordelia can kind of do what she wants. They finally had the freedom. They're no longer under their father's boot or in his shadow. So it's like all that smack talking you did, you should have kept your damn mouth shut, Harlan, because now your daughters ended up betraying you, and now you're going to be in big, big trouble. I mean, who's to say Harlan still won't find his way out of this? I'm very curious to see what he does ultimately when he finds out his daughters betray them. That's going to be a whole complicated thing, but to be fair, it's like, well, they're a very complicated family, so I guess, hell, for all we know, he might even be impressed. He might be like, honestly, I underestimated you girls, you got me. So he might be in a twisted way proud. Still doesn't mean he won't get his revenge getting them, but on some level he might be like, actually, it shows me that you have fully embraced the freed name, so we'll see in that regard. But obviously it's that situation of knowing what everyone knows, because it turns out Osborn did know. Once again, it is deep manipulation. So I was like, because he'd even because there's a whole situation with Raylan's dad being like, that's my son, I'll do anything to save his life, so what do you want, Osborn? He's like, what, you actually think I'm behind all this? You think I can actually manipulate a judicial system? It's almost like this, air of smugness that Osborn has. It's like, oh, you definitely manipulated a judicial system. It's like, you piece of crap. So it's like, okay, so what do you want? He wants something called Pandora's box, which apparently the Zatarians have, because it's like, the fact is like, you want to go to war that badly? He's like, no, I don't want a war. But it's like, I guess it's kind of similar to what Harlan wants. Osborn wants power. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's in a position he's in, but for him, it's like, I could be in so much more of a powerful position. Maybe it's just to keep it out of everyone else's hands. Because it seems like at this point, literally everyone knows about Jax except for Jax. Because it turns out Osborn knows, Xander knows, but even Xander's being kept in the dark about certain things. The Zatarians know. Harlan and his children know. So it's like literally everyone but Jax doesn't know. But basically it turns out that's the exchange. But I was like, how's that exchange going to work when it comes down to the truth finally coming out? But it's like, I guess because that was so behind the scenes that it's kind of like, who cares? But I guess it's kind of like, I guess that was enough to halt the execution. Maybe Osborn was like, eventually they'll find out the truth. Maybe. Or maybe it just expedited, Raylan's release, that it was going to happen regardless. Or maybe they hide that from Raylan's dad, that the evidence is there, that maybe they hid that aspect. They were just like, oh, well, maybe on with Earthcom, they was like, yeah, evidence came up to prove his innocence, but maybe to everyone else, including Raylan's dad and Zatar, maybe it was kind of like because we made the deal, he let it slide, so he released Raylan. Maybe, I don't know, but it did seem like he was caught off guard when it's like, wait, where'd you get this? So which means, like I said, he was taking advantage of the situation. He knew Raylan wasn't behind this, but it doesn't necessarily, obviously Harlan was behind the Tereshkova being destroyed. So the thing is, like, he just knew what was up. He just took advantage of the situation. But I guess he was a little worried that he might lose his leverage if the truth came out. But even, Jax had caught on the fact that it's been like, oh, don't you already know, Uncle? It's like, yeah, this is all part of your game or whatever. So that's definitely going to be interesting. I'm curious, because obviously, mythologically, what Pandora's box is, that basically it held all the evil in the world, and then she opened the box and unleashed all of it, So obviously, that's what this is supposed to be. I guess, those creatures, those aliens are supposed to be her monsters from her box. Maybe a few of them are released, or maybe there's something else entirely different inside of that box. Maybe the box, because they refer to Pandora as the key. So maybe the box is locked and she's the key to opening it. What's in it, like power and all that, what specifically, we don't know. But it turns out even Raylan has known about who Jax really is, because it seems like that's part of his mission. What I also thought was fascinating was the fact is, it's like, oh no, I told you to destroy that ship, and Raylan's like, if I actually done it, I'd actually be dead now, because I would be on trial for it and everything, because I would legitimately be guilty. But it's like, holy crap, because I was under the impression like, no, the Zatarians had nothing to do with it. I thought the whole point was they wanted the ship for themselves. I thought they were going to hijack it. I thought that's what he was like, it can't reach Earth. Like, I assumed the destruction thing, but then afterwards I was like, no, Raylan didn't do it. They were actually trying to divert it and make it go to Zatar. I thought that was kind of the whole point until it got destroyed. It's like, no, it was actually supposed to be Raylan who did it, but he disobeyed his dad. I wonder why. Maybe because he kind of felt bad because he didn't want to kill all those people. There were like 156 if you don't count the doctor who was, still alive and everything. So, but now it's the thing of like, don't let your emotions get the best of you, because who she really is, she's the key to everything. And it's like, yeah, but her name isn't Pandora, Dad. It's Jax. But don't worry, I'm not going to let my feelings get the best of me. It's like, you already did. I think that's proof enough. The fact is you corrected your dad by being like, she's not Pandora, she's Jax. But at the same time, it's like, there's a whole complicated thing. Because even Jax is going to take a step back, because it's like, well, Raylan's married, so for once, I'm going to, sit back, wait and see, which is something she's never really been good at, which even her and Xander kind of laugh about the fact is that she is the one that kind of say that. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where that goes, especially because of the whole Atria situation, how she's going to feel about it, because she likes Raylan, but at the same time, it's like, well, now that she finds out, well, it's like he likes Jax, but not only that, he's also married. That's going to be a whole thing. I wonder if we're going to see any more Matza or not. I'm interested. Probably not, because, also, what are some potential future orders that his dad is going to give him that he has no choice but to kind of obey now? Also, was it being truthful about the fact is that he didn't know about the Zatarian ships and stuff like that, potentially gearing up for war? Is that true that there are just, like, because I was under the impression, like, yeah, I believed him that he didn't know that, it's like, at the very least, like, that stuff that I figured his dad might be a part of, but the question of, like, the whole thing of, like I said, it might be something he believes, but it might not necessarily be true. The whole, like, there are people on Zatar who aren't too keen on this peace thing. I mean, this kind of implies maybe his dad isn't either. Because, he had warned Osborn. It's like, I hope you know what you're doing because you're playing with fire. But Osborn was like, I know what I'm doing. It's like, I don't know if you do. I mean, you are obviously very smart, calculated person. Like, you've just come out on top on every situation, it seems like. It seems like you know so much ahead of time. But at the same time, it's like, I still get the feeling like when he walks away from this, he's going to get burned. So we'll see what ends up happening in that regard. But Raylan is staying at the academy for now. Name cleared and everything. So on top of all that, there's everything with Thomas in space. Oxygen's getting low because of that. He's a little delirious. He's actually seeing his mom now, which that's an interesting conversation. We know he had a complicated relationship with his dad. It seems like he definitely has one with his mom. I'm assuming she's not around anymore. Maybe that conversation came up before. I don't remember. Or maybe it's just kind of like she is still around, but maybe they just don't talk like they're supposed to. It seemed more like she's not around anymore. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, it's kind of like, the fact is your dad ruins everything. It's like, Dad's not who you thought he was. It's like, no, he's exactly who I thought he was, because look where you are right now. The fact of the matter is, you want to claim that this is about your powers. It's like, no, this is about one girl. And then he's kind of like, his mother's kind of disapproval, which obviously this is all in his head. It's either his subconscious talking like his mother really would, or maybe this is just his subconscious trying to smack him around to be like, yo, get your shit together. So Thomas is, kind of dealing with that, arguing with someone that's not even really there. That's all in his head. But it's kind of still an interesting conversation, because for him, it's like he wanted to walk his own path, because his mom, it's like, I got in a position I was by the time I was 30. Like, by the time you're 30, where are you going to be? But for him, it's like, you literally planned out so much of my life. You wanted me to walk your path. That's why I did everything I've done. I've made my own choices. I want to be able to walk in my own shoes, not have to walk your exact footsteps. But she's like, well, look where your choices have landed you. Out here, lost in space, running out of oxygen. So it's not like you made the best choices. Because for her, it's like, I just wanted what was best for you. He was like, you just want what you thought was best for me, and what you thought was best for me is for me to be basically like you. Because I think it was her maybe overcompensating, because she didn't want him to end up like his father, so I think it's kind of circumstances like that. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm so interested to see where that storyline takes us with Thomas, because it seems like someone picks him up. But even Pilar was like, unless Thomas turns on his tracker again, we're not going to be able to find him unless he wants to be found. So I think it's that whole thing of like, is it really just the voices that was just too much for you to handle, or was it a combination of that? Because Atria ended up being his foundation. She kind of kept him together, but now knowing like all that stuff in her head about Raylan, which, obviously showing her concern for Thomas. I mean, to be fair, she was kind of more there for Thomas than Raylan, kind of shows, like, I think it is a thing of like, because Thomas is trying to make, which is so interesting when you actually think about it. It's like, Thomas is trying to do to Atria what his mom did to him, and trying to like, I want you to fit this mold. I want you to be like this. It's like, but I think maybe psychologically he doesn't even realize he's doing that. Maybe, I don't know, but I think maybe this is kind of leaning itself to maybe being like, no, Atria and Thomas might get back together, that there's going to be something there. Basically, like, this whole love situation getting more complicated by the more and more time passes, because it's just like new angles to this whole complicated love situation amongst this group of friends, or this group is going to, it just gets more complicated. So we'll see, because everyone's taking that time to be like, take a step back and see what the landscape holds and whatnot. So I am curious to see who it is that picked them up, because that's the whole thing too, because I'm thinking it's Tierney, because Tierney had already taken an interest in Thomas. But Billy was like, I'll go back, I'll work with you, just stay the hell away from my son. Which we now know, it's like, oh, does Tierney work for Harlan? Cordelia made it seem like, she was like, no, you could say that my father works for Tierney, which we know Tierney works for that Earthcom. So maybe like there's some like Earthcom group that is kind of a fringe group that's kind of on their own, kind of a similar thing to Osborn. Maybe Osborn's on his own, maybe he's secretly part of this, maybe him and Harlan are part of this and they're competing for it, or maybe they're separate. I don't know. I would have never guessed that Tierney would be the one. So like, not unless she's playing a role like, oh, I'm here in this situation where it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be that group that Billy D worked for, that utilized his abilities and everything. I forgot their name now, but like that, like maybe she's playing the role of I work with them, or I did work with them and still do, but secretly I've got my own thing up my sleeve. I don't know. I'm curious. Are we going to find out that Tierney's actually like the main antagonist or something like that? That a character that seemed like it might have been, because obviously there's a lot of depth to her that we haven't even begun to really scratch at the surface to. So I'm very interested. Or maybe Thomas did turn on the tracking at the last minute and someone did pick him up. I don't know. I'm so interested to see ultimately where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, because complications upon complications upon complications. But really, that's all I want to talk about today. So with me, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.